Hi, this is Brian from Rivit, and you're watching Mikey's Untitled Music Show.
Welcome to Mikey's Untitled Music Show, guys. Today, we're going to dive into the musical mind of Brian Hensley of the band Rivit. How you doing today, Brian?
Excellent, Mikey. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you too, bro. I really appreciate you doing this for me. You're following me along this new musical journey, and I just can't wait to keep on going. You can find or Brian is of the band Rivit. Who is the band Rivit, or who's in the band Rivit, Brian? And how did you guys get formed?
So Rivit is me. I started writing songs back when pandemic came. I've had a couple versions of the band and a couple different lineups, and just kept driving forward and pursuing, and it ended up just being kind of a solo mission. And so I found a writing partner and a vocalist, and we wrote songs that we took to some studio players and a producer in LA, and his name is Chris Flores. So our bass player in those sessions name is Tony Franklin. Tony Franklin played with Jimmy Page in a band called The Firm. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Firm, but that was a pretty big band. He was also in Blue Murder with John Sykes, who was in Whitesnake and a lot of other bands.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So then we have a drummer. His name's Shane Dallas. He's done stuff with all kinds of artists. You can look him up, but he's done stuff with Shania Twain, Billy Idol. So they're session guys who played on the tracks. As far as the writing goes, that's between me, and the singer's name is Nils Lawrence. Nils is a bass player and vocalist for Michelangelo Battio, I think he pronounces it, but he plays like the 2-neck shredder guitar. I don't know. He's a real legend from the 80s and 90s, still today, but you know, a lot of the shredder players that have been out for 40, 50 years and still touring, he plays bass and does vocals for the Michelangelo Battio band. So you can find them on YouTube and stuff too. So they're professional touring musicians. And when I got the songs demos done, you know, I wanted to produce the best versions of the songs that I could, you know, when they were written demos and they had vocals to them. They were changed as far as vocals go. I have a few lines in there, you know, but Nils pretty much wrote the lyrics to them and sang them, you know, but they were full demos with drums and bass and lead parts. And, you know, we scrapped a lot of stuff and changed a lot of stuff around. But the producer, Chris Flores, he's worked with Slash and George Lynch and Chester Bennington and Boys to Men, and
Oh, wow.
started out in Babyface's studio. So he's out in LA and has, you know, contacts with all the top players out there and stuff. So at the time, you know, trying to just keep moving the music forward and getting the records done and getting music out, you know, I didn't want to let what was going on with changing hands and different players that I was playing with get in the way of that, if you want to put it that way. So I just pretty much took it in my own hands and got the songs produced and recorded. And then now we have them out on CD and vinyl and for streaming. And I'm writing now for the next set. So I'll probably use the same lineup again. I'm really happy with the way the record turned out. And in modern music, there's a lot of bands where there's people in different countries, people in different, you know, all over the place that all play together. So technology's kind of brought it to where we can do that and be able to, you can have full jam sessions and nobody's in the same country. So that's a nice a nice thing that's come along in the last few years to be able to connect people from all different parts of the world, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of like with my right now, I'm a college student at San Diego City College, and I'm taking audio production. And the same thing with my teacher. She said, honestly, when you're doing a project, you're gonna have one person from like Europe, one person from California, one person from Florida, and you guys are all just gonna be online and pretty much doing like pretty much what you're doing, right? Is just recording separately or even jamming or even working together. But yeah, you're around the world. That's the beauty of our technology now.
Right. And you know, down the line, you know, let's say the band really took off and got some legs of its own, and you know, I totally would be open to playing live shows and doing tours and all that, you know.
Hmm.
And if I end up putting together a band with a different lineup or, you know, players in my area, you know, I'm hoping that the better the music is and the better product I'm producing on my own would attract players of better caliber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're trying to put together a sound and you're trying to put together a band or whatever, and you have nothing to show anyone or you have nothing for anyone to hear, it's
That's right.
kind of hard to get somebody to buy what you're selling, you know?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and so I've kind of tried to establish that and get a name going and a sound and a, you know, to where I would love it to take off the way that it is because I love everything about it, you know. But
Hmm.
you know, the guys I play with are at a caliber where, you know, they're playing at professional gigs every day as we speak right now.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
they're also
interesting.
I'm sorry, yeah, but also like they are playing with you, right? So that has to bring you some kind of confidence as well that okay, like I can get the guys of this caliber together. It should be not well, I don't want to say easy, but it should be doable getting a certain type of caliber around you as well. So that should actually does that give you some kind of confidence knowing that?
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit a couple things on the head. Like as far as some of my early goals that I had set for myself or those kind of like bucket list type things that I, you know, so many of those I've scratched off now along this journey that it's like
Yeah.
I'm constantly having to reinvent things like that to achieve to keep the drive going forward, you know. One of those big ones too was getting played on the radio, you know, because growing up
Mm.
on the radio,
Yeah.
you know, in the 80s and 70s as a kid, that was the thing. If you heard your song on the radio, and so the both of the first two singles we put out, both of them played on the local station,
Mm.
WRIF, which is the station I grew up listening to. So
That's awesome.
and then playing with, you know, guys like Tony and Shane and Nils that every day rub elbows with, you know, legends, you know, that kind of stuff. It really fulfills a lot of the things that drive you, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
gives me a lot of energy to keep going forward because a lot of positive things have happened along the way.
Yeah, so let's kind of go back a little bit, kind of to like where you started. So one of the first questions I like to ask is, if you can tell us like one of the earliest memories you have of using your musical creativity for like one of your projects.
Probably about 13. I got an acoustic guitar, maybe 7, 8 years old. That was my dad's, but at 13, I got my first electric for my birthday.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting down with a friend of mine, you know, and recording cassette tapes of the two of us playing guitars and making album covers. And my mom still has that stuff, you know.
Oh,
And then in high school at, you know, 16, 17, being in high school bands and playing covers and you know, we got to play at like basketball tournaments with maybe 400 or 500 people at halftime playing Judas Priest and stuff, you know. So a lot of those early kind of cool things drove me too, you know. That's
yeah.
probably go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask, why did you pick guitar at first?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I was never really drawn to any other instrument. You know, now I have everything, but as a kid, definitely I was drawn to guitar. I think it's just the sound that it makes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like Just
yeah.
like Hero by Foreigner, that lead in that song. I remember it when it came out, and that's like 83 or something like that. But that
Mm.
solo and just hearing guitar like that was amazing to me. So I think that's what got me into guitar more than anything is the sound that it makes, I guess, right?
Yeah. Like that was my first favorite my first favorite sound is the electric guitar. Growing up, my parents were really young. My parents were teenagers when I was born. So at that time I was probably like 4 or 5 listening to like uh like 80s music also, my parents
Yeah.
were still teenagers, so like they were listening to um like my dad would listen to Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Heart, like things like that. And my mom would listen to like Debbie Gibson and um like Aha, and then it got to like Mariah Carey and stuff. So um like Metallica, I can remember that was probably one my first or the first band outside of the church because I grew up in church, and um my music definitely does have a start in the church with like song service and things like that.
So I know a lot of like 80s, like Petra, Striper, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I even went to those shows as a kid. I remember going to.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I love that sound. I love that sound of the guitar, and I just always found it interesting. Do you remember what was like one of your first musical projects? Or actually, before we get into that, who are some of your influences as a kid or a teenager that made you actually want to get into playing music?
As a kid, that 13-year-old kid that gets a guitar for his birthday, it's Eddie Van Halen. It's 1983. Yeah, I think 1984 the album came out probably. I think it came out in late 83 or early 84. So everything was about Eddie Van Halen at that point.
Mm, hmm.
Um now I probably I have a whole different list of influences since then, but at that time definitely that was the sound and that was the style and that was what I was trying to do.
Yeah, and so you stayed with like rock music, right? And but like you're like my the song Away and the song Breaking Away that you have on your SoundCloud, they
Breaking
kind of
Me.
Breaking Me, I'm sorry. They kind of sound like maybe like Alter Bridge, like Audio Slave, or like maybe like Soundgarden kind of thing. It
Without saying a word, that's exactly what I mean, I don't tell people like, I write to sound like Soundgarden, but that's a huge influence on that sound. And if you close your eyes and listen to the vocals, it does it even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Look, a long time. When you get into vocalists, there's so many different styles out there. And with modern technology, there's a lot of access to good singers with all different kinds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was 4 or 5 years of hunting, looking for Nils, and he's perfect for the sound I'm looking for.
Yeah, it really is. His voice is really good with the song. But yeah, it brought me back to that time of like maybe what like 2007, 2008, 4, something like that. Like back to that.
Which I'm shooting for like 90, 92. You know what I mean? And
Okay,
maybe
okay.
Breaking Me is a little more I'm
Okay,
not going
yeah.
to say more of a modern drive, but it has a
Yeah.
little more, not industrial, but it has that kind of different feel to it. But definitely Away.
Yes.
It is it's that
Really matter.
yeah. Yeah. And then that's what I was going for. I love that sound. But also on my guitar tone itself, I love Adam Jones of Tool. So I love that.
Hmm.
kind of sound that he's got three amplifiers going, but it's Les Paul based and tube amps. And, I use a couple different amps and mix them together for that tone. And that's all kind of his stuff, big pedal boards and all that stuff. But, he's probably my favorite modern guitar player.
And was Away your first track that you released?
Yes. And that
What?
I wrote that and recorded a version of that 4 years ago or so.
Okay, yeah.
All by myself, recorded drums and then did the bass and guitar and vocal, but it's quite a bit different. It's there, you can hear it, and especially the basic guitar riffs, you know what I mean? But the arrangement, the dropping, playing this 3 or 4 times, we're only gonna play it three, and all that kind of stuff. We probably chopped a minute out of both songs. They were a little bit longer and drawn out and had a little more uh like in a way when it goes into the drum part and it brings in those kind of different drums and it's got the uh cool vocal parts in there and stuff, that breakdown there. I had that twice, so when you get a good producer, he kind of chops the fat out and gets it more radio friendly and all that kind of stuff. So about a 4 minute song, I think one's 4, one's 350. So that's kind of where I shoot, about 4 minutes.
And so, yeah, let's go back to when you first created that. Even if it is kind of a little different than what it is now,
Sure.
what was kind of the thought process of going into, okay, were you gonna make this song to release it like at first, like, or was it just like a little project for you? How did you get started with it?
That particular song I wrote to submit to the radio station to play it on there. And it went exactly, I submitted it, they played it. It was exactly what it was meant to do. So then when Breaking Me came out 2 months later or something, then we sent them that one and they played that too. And that's a show in Detroit called Motor City Riffs. And they highlight local talent in the area. You know what I mean? So that's
Okay.
what they do. You know what I mean? And that's great that they take submissions and put people out on the big radio like that.
Yeah, and so when you start creating Away, did you write the lyrics first? Did you write the music first? How did you get
That
started with it?
that intro riff is how the song started. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's pretty much the song. Then I put the chorus to it and a couple, like I said, I had maybe two breakdowns in it. It was a little bit longer, but it sounds, if you take just the guitar, it sounds very similar to what ended up recorded.
Mhm.
But the rest of it, the drums are completely different. The
Okay.
vocals completely different. The melodies completely different. But either way,
Mhm.
and that's something too. A lot of people said, "Well, it's not. Don't you feel like you're giving something up or whatever?"
Mhm.
But to me, it's about the song, and I don't know if some people won't give up things or whatever because they feel like they didn't get their true what they were trying to do with the song or whatever. I was trying to make the best song I could, right? So when I went to look for each person, when I went to do every little part of it, I wanted the best that I could get. So if it meant part of what I put into it wasn't going to make it, if it meant someone else was going to sing it, if it meant that, you know what I mean? I was willing to do that to get what I wanted.
And
So
how did
go ahead.
No, yeah, and what avenues did you take to find these extra or not extra, but these other artists or these other musicians? Like I would say maybe if somebody was kind of starting in your position where it's just you, because I've met other artists who have who do these kinds of projects themselves, like a DIY like project, and they're trying to look for different musicians, but they, like you said, they don't want to give up as much as they would like, or yeah, like what kind of advice would you give somebody to try to find the musicians kind of like how you found them?
One route is through a producer, right? Generally, a producer has a list of people he's worked with, and he kind of has maybe some favorites around. But with social media, most, musicians that do session work and stuff like that advertise on their social media stuff. So when they're not out on tour, when they're not doing gigs, whatever, they got some time back at home at the studio, they'll generally run something in their socials that says, "Hey, DM me if you're looking to get session work done, or if you want me to play some tracks on your thing, send me a." So there's a lot of people that do that, and it, it's not hard to find because I did it. But I would start, if you have a producer that you work with, start with them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or if you have an artist that you've always wanted to work with, like Tony Franklin, right? Look him up. Go to his pages and see if he offers those kind of things, because a lot of musicians do. And a lot of bands are one or two guys too. You know what I mean? Where they're really, those are the core, and they push the band, and then the lineup will change, and they have, a different drummer this time than they did last time, or a couple different people in the band. But a lot of bands you'll see over 20 years, there's one or two guys that stayed the same in the lineup the entire way through. And who knows? Like some friends of mine talked to me about, wouldn't you love to be out playing live and that type of thing? And I would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with it. But I also feel like there's bands like, Jimi Hendrix, right? None of us have seen him live, but we can all enjoy his music and buy a CD and a shirt and watch something that was produced in video on. So I think I can still get my music out and get heard and get people to enjoy it. And, another big part of my initial feeling about the music was like sync licensing, movies and TV and commercials, right? So there's a big market in that. And that doesn't require a lot of touring or a lot of, playing live or that type of thing. And you can generate music from your studio and get it synced and licensed in music and TV shows and things like that, and make, royalties and money doing that as well. So I never set out necessarily to do that, but as I got into it more and I see the industry and how it works and everything, that comes up more and more and more as a possibility of another avenue to market the music that I'm making without having to put on live shows or things like that.
Yeah. And the excuse me. And so when you have this song, you already played it on the radio, in a way, and then you said that you made another, the Breaking Me, that was also played on the radio. Was it played on the radio before it was changed?
After we had fully changed them.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Right.
okay. Uh,
In the version you have heard them yourself. Yeah.
oh,
I
okay, okay,
didn't release them before.
okay. And so what's the conversation like? Is there any kind of like pushback to like, okay, so you get these new musicians, and but like, is it they wanted to change the song, or it's just kind of like, hey, I think this should be changed in this way?
That's more of a production level call from a producer who has done many, many recordings and many albums. And however cool you think you are, you know what I mean? This is everyday work for him.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
although I have my own opinions and some stuff, whether it came out better or worse, I stood on and we stayed with, because they're my songs, and in the end you're gonna make the call, right? But then if it
Yeah.
sucks, it's all on you, right? So I
Mhm.
definitely take professional advice and I listen to what people say, and knock on wood, so far all the advice I've taken from other people around me in that respect has turned out to be good. You know what I mean? I don't regret anything about the way the music came out. It came out better than I ever thought it would. And that's something that, without entrusting someone else to take it and run with it like that, you're never going to find out what's going to happen.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So you can always go back and say, no, that's no good. And I've recorded 3 or 4 other singers that I didn't use, that I paid well to record. And they're doing their job, right? I played other guitar players I didn't use. I paid drummers I didn't use, right? Because again, I was very particular on how it was going to come out. And so it took a few tries to get it right. And now the lineup that we just used, I absolutely love every bit of it.
When it comes to hiring those musicians, maybe also like another like piece of advice, like what do you have to give them any kind of royalty to the songs that you created, or is that something that you guys talk about, or do you give them like a flat fee?
All of the above, right? So that's all contractual, however you work it out between them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Some people want royalties. Some people just want a certain amount of money, and then that's the end of it. You know what I mean? So it just
Like,
depends on how you want it to be. Maybe if you don't want to spend the money, then you offer to split royalties with somebody. You know what I mean? If somebody's writing part of your song or whatever, then yeah, they deserve royalties to it. But if they say, hey, just pay me X amount of dollars, and then there's no splits or anything, it's all yours, then you can go that route. But that's all negotiable, and there is no, I wouldn't say there is a set standard. There's a lot of different, I've seen just about everything.
mm, yeah. Um, so one of the last questions I do like to ask is, what has been the ultimate purpose of like music in your life?
For me, it's like a vacation, right? I work a full-time day job, and I have a busy schedule on top of everything I do at the studio, but it doesn't feel like work. I'm usually out of work by 1:30, and I'm here by 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I leave by 7 or 8. So I'm probably putting in 30, 35 hours a week at the studio on top of my full-time job, but it just doesn't feel like work. It's very therapeutic. Um, I think if you have that drive in you to produce music and then you can't, it leads to all kinds of other problems that nobody really knows about unless you're one of those people.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's not manageable, but I'm just much better off when I can have an outlet uh, to channel that creativity. And then kind of being, not a one man band, but, as far as the production end of it, I do all the art, I do all the website, all the social media, all the. When people order stuff, mailing it out, when people. So that's fun too, as far as wearing all those different hats and keeping the website going and doing all I have a lot of fun doing that and learning all kinds of stuff about that too. So, which I'm sure you do too, doing what you're doing. So you kind of know what I'm talking about there.
Oh yeah. You don't know how much work actually goes into like something like this until you actually get in there and start learning. And what's fun for me is like getting a booking like right now. Still, if I see like now like I use like different resources. Like now I have a scheduler that I use to send to the band, so that they can like so they have something for them to look like ahead of time, or like I've learned little things. Try not to send too many bands messages because you're just gonna get because people want to want people to share their art and their music and well pretty much their art, right? So they're gonna want to be not everybody, but like people want to be a part of this, so that's really cool, and that's really like, oh hell yeah, like I got another booking, sick, cool. But yeah, like there's a big learning curve, especially learning how to set up and, you know, you just don't realize how much work is actually in it. But with all that said, I get stressed out and, I stress myself out because, I want things to be a certain way, but it's all fun. Like I, I'm in this and, now I don't even see myself not doing this anymore.
Right.
Like, and it's still early but like I've tried other things in my life, other projects and stuff like that, things that I thought, that I really wanted to do or enjoyed. But I think I've found what I want to do and I need to do this now. But like, yeah, you have to go do it though, right? You have to go do
Yeah,
it.
definitely. Hey, you're good at it too. So I'm glad that you have the right spirit coming out of the box. Because it's easy to get discouraged. Especially coming right starting out because you want all kinds of fans and people to encourage you and family to come out and push what you're doing and all that. And a lot of people find it's pretty much the opposite of that, right? It's just you
Yeah.
grinding away all day, every day,
Hmm.
and getting a few more likes every week and a few more posts every week and little tiny battles that you're winning. But you know, that that's the encouraging part is seeing that little seed grow into something every day, getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and I've learned to not take it personal
Yeah.
also from my family and friends and stuff like that because um not that they don't want you to succeed or anything like that, but like I've talked about it before, like I'm sure they're scared for me, like or they're scared for us, like because oh they're putting themselves out. What if they get their hearts broken? What if it doesn't, happen for them? Blah 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 blah. And it's kind of like a half like, hey, yeah, good job, but maybe, So, but I've learned to, like I said, I've learned to accept that and I've learned to kind of take that in stride rather than oh, nobody believes in me type of thing because they do. They believe in us. Like our families and our friends, they believe in us. They're just worried and they don't want us to get hurt. So, I've also, like I said, I've taken that and, kind of ran with it and it doesn't bother me. It did bother me in the beginning, of course, like, but it doesn't bother me now, like at all because like one, I know they love me. And two, but I don't have time to worry about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like we gotta get this thing like we gotta get this thing going and stuff. And but yeah, but something like what you did. You you messaged me on Instagram and said that, you want to be a part of it, like what I'm doing. And that right there is like what it's all about for me, like I want to help people. I want to help, well, not just people, I want to help musical artists get their voice heard because there's so many people out there, so many artists out there, so much music out there that like their following is like between maybe like 0 and 10K or something like that. And not it's not because maybe they just don't know how to like with social media. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, it's still like I'm still learning all that stuff. But if there's like I've always wanted to help people, but I never knew in what capacity I can do that. So I've always wanted to stay with music and it's just like my mind is just like on it's 0 to 100 like all the time and it's just being impatient because I have all these ideas and like I want to open a music studio. I want to I want to open a studio where people can come and play and we can have an interview. I want to have some kind of spot where it's like a small venue and independent artists could come play at that venue and they get like 50 to 60% of the profits or of the proceeds because it's crazy to me how these people make this music, these artists make all this music, they go play a show and they get like 10 to 20% of what they like that's just crazy to me, you know? So I want to build something like that also for the independent artist, for the artist. So like I have all these plans, and it's just,
Those are great dreams, man.
you know,
It's great.
like yeah, and yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to get it going. And I thank you for helping me in this journey, because like without artists like you that trust in me to tell their story, like I wouldn't be able to do any of this. So, like I really thank you also for coming on the show, Brian. I really do. And I thank you so much for reaching out, because those types of things are all wins for me. And, every little win matters.
Well, I thank you too, because we're a lot alike in our mentality there, and so we're just getting started together. And I definitely hope this is a long relationship, and we can look back years down the road, and then maybe it's in interview 7 or whatever we're up to by that time, and we're talking about world tours and whatever. But it's definitely good to connect with people who are like-minded and good people, and I'll definitely do everything I can to help push you along.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. It really means a lot. But the last question I do like to ask, I don't know if you've ever thought of this yourself or not, but I do like to ask, what is Brian Hensley's message to the world?
Brian Hensley's message to the world. Oh boy. I think that musically, everybody has a place in their heart for music, and we all enjoy different types of music. I don't discriminate against different types of music, and so I think that that's a big thing, that some people put up barriers and they'll only listen to 1 or 2 different kinds of music, and if you try and play this kind of music, they're gonna react negatively, and that kind of thing. When it's really all kind of the same, it's all made up of just notes and beats and words, right? It's just arranged a little bit differently. So, especially here in my studio, I like to vary the different type of people that come in, so that it doesn't just have one experience over and over again. You know what I mean? It has a different feel to it every time, and I grow from that, and I learn from it. And then the next person that comes in, it could be a completely different genre of music, completely different thing, right? But something probably from what we did before is going to carry over into that, and that's like a big unifying experience to me. You know what I mean? To be able to work and get to know all different kind of people, and all of them get along, and all of them work together, and all of them kind of have a common goal, and moving forward in that. So, I guess in all that, just being more open-minded and being more open to working with different kinds of people, and not necessarily just kind of pigeonholing all of ourselves into one kind of music, and that's the only people I'm going to work with. Or even, if it's a studio, or if it's a producer, or if it's a city you live in, whatever it is that makes you kind of pull into yourself with your music, maybe try and expand that a little bit more, and not create those boundaries, and see if that opens new opportunities or avenues for people. You never know who you're going to meet and where that's going to take you.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for joining Mikey's Untitled Music Show. Again, I really appreciate it. I can't say thank you enough. And remind us where we can find your music, please.
The easiest place is at the website, which is www.rivit, RIVIT.rocks, ROCKS. There's no .com, there's no .net. just rivet.rocks. From there, you can get links to anything else that you're looking for. But instead of giving you 17 different addresses, we'll just stick with the website. And it's right here on my shirt, Rivet Rocks. So easy to get to. You can find links to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff on it.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. And as we say at the end, everybody, remember, be safe, be great. We share because we care. Peace.
Thank you, Mikey.